Hello everybody, welcome back. We're here on CM42 TV. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And today we're going to talk about my very first cinema experience when I was just a wee boy. We're going to talk about it right now in the intention of starting a new series where every person I'm going to be talking to on the Good Bit podcast, my movie podcast that's been kind of stagnant for a while, it's been sitting on the shelf throughout the past 5 months. I think we went from January to kind of May. Also more than 5 months then, doing like the Good Bit of season 2, and that was kind of like proper lockdown, you know what I mean, when there was not much to do. And then when everything opened back up again, we stopped doing that so much. But yeah, we're bringing back the Good Bit very, very soon. We're going to have different people on all the time, and one of the questions that I plan to ask them on the podcast every time they come on is like, can you talk about your very first film experience, whether that be watching a film in the house or at the cinema. And then what I'll do is I'll clip moments from the podcast and put them out as videos. I thought that may be a good idea. So I thought, how can we start that? I have to talk about my first cinema experience. And I've probably talked about this. In fact, I know for a fact I've talked about this before on the Good Bit podcast. So if you've listened to the podcast before and I'm repeating myself, I apologise. But thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. That you can follow. I just got a text. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram and stuff at the Good Bit Pod, but also on all your favourite podcasting outlets. You'll be able to go back and listen to a bunch of them. We did 62 episodes prior to season 2, and then season 2 came out, we did like a further 12 or something like that. So there's a bunch on there. And I'm not saying the new season that's starting is going to be season 3. I quite like that though. I quite like how it's like a build up of seasons, but maybe that's what we'll do. But anyway, let's chat about my first experience at the cinema. I can't tell you what my first movie experience was in terms of watching it in the house, because obviously I would have been a baby, but the first one I can remember might have been something like Spider-Man or Ready to Rumble or the Scooby-Doo movie, Tarzan, things like that, like those very late 90s, early 2000s kind of films. That vibe. That's what I think my first kind of cinema experience would have been. Not cinema, movie experience, whether I had them on VHS or DVD or they were just on like Channel 4 or something and I watched them in the house. I can't tell you for certain. However, I can tell you for certain my first experience at the cinema, and it was in 2001, and it was to see Monsters Inc. That's right, Monsters Inc., an absolute classic from Disney. And it's so funny because my wee cousin, my little cousin who is about to who's just turned 5 this year. So he's 5 years old, and we've just showed him Monsters Inc. for the first time, and it's now like become his favourite film. Every single time he comes over here, it's almost like he can't watch Monsters Inc. in the house, he has to watch it here, which kind of like that because Monsters Inc.'s on Disney Plus, right? So if you have Disney Plus, you can watch it wherever. But you know, back in the day when like you went to your grand's house or your pal's house or your auntie's and like they had their DVDs and videos, so you could only watch what they had. If you didn't have Monsters Inc., you couldn't watch Monsters Inc. But if you went over to someone's house who did have Monsters Inc., you could watch it. I kind of like that. That's kind of like the way it is right now. I like the kind of nostalgia kick of that. But anyway, so he loves coming over here, my wee cousin who's 5, and he always comes over and asks to watch Monsters Inc. And it's because the start of it, when they're doing the test scare thing, one of the new monsters wakes up the child and falls and hits his bum on like the toys that are on the floor, and he screams. And my wee cousin, who is 5 years old, just thinks it's the funniest thing in the world, and that's like that kind of like charming aspect of it, because I think Monsters Inc. can be quite scary for someone who's really, really young. And even the first time my wee cousin watched it, was scared at that moment, and my sister had to like reassure him and was like, this is okay, it's going to be funny in a second, you know. So I wonder how I felt, you know what I mean. I've always had this wacky imagination. I wonder how it would have been in 2001 when I would have been 4 or 5 years old and sat in that cinema and watching it and just being like, oh my god, am I going to be scared here? Are parents who took their kids who are 4 or 5 to watch it thinking this is going to be scary, and then obviously it's not. But the idea of Monsters Inc., like monsters being in your cupboard or under the bed and things like that, that's terrifying for a young child, you know. So just that idea, and obviously they make the monsters look as silly and ridiculous as possible. And then Mike and Sully, although Mike only has one eye, but Sully looks very cuddly and stuff, you know. So yes, you can turn on that kind of like scary aspect of it, but realistically, you know, marketing wise, you want to get cuddly toys of Mike and Sully, and I did that. I had both. I actually have a sticker of Mike and Sully on my laptop right here that my sister bought me from a bookshop recently. But yeah, I always have a soft spot for Monsters Inc. because it's the first film that I saw in the cinema, and I hope that becomes a thing. I hope that like kids who are going to see films for the very first time in the cinema in 2021, I hope they hold on to those memories. If it's something like Raya and the Last Dragon, or Enchanto, the brand new one that's just come out, or whether it's Soul on Disney Plus, things like that, these are the first experiences they're having with movies. I wonder and I hope that they look back at those films with like real nostalgia and real love, because I can't remember the exact day and stuff like that, but I can remember seeing it. I can remember the tune and hearing the tune and seeing the font and stuff like that on the cinema screen. And also, I wasn't there with lots of friends because I would have been 4 or 5. It's not as if I had many friends to go with anyway, and I still don't. But like, say for example, if it was like a Saturday afternoon and my mum and dad had taken me to see Monsters Inc., right? It was almost like other families had taken their kids to go see Monsters Inc., because I remember them being lots of kids, like lots of children in the cinema. And I remember, I kid you not, I remember myself and other kids who I don't think I knew running up and down the stairs in the screen. Now, I'm an avid cinema goer, right? I have a cinema card, an unlimited card, and an unlimited ticket. So that means I go to the cinema on a weekly basis. I would say that I am a cinema goer, I'm a cinema fan. It's something that I do. It's one of my hobbies, going to the cinema. At least it has been for a long time. The past 5 or 6 years when I've had that card, it's actually recently been good getting back into it, but 2021 has been weird. But anyway, but outside of COVID, it is a thing that I do myself, with my mates, with my family. I love going to the cinema, and the slightest little kind of distraction, disruption, rudeness from other people, it just bothers me, So to the point where I've got where I like to sit, and I've got my favourite seat, and I like, when I try to book that area anyway. I prefer like certain times. I don't like going like in the Saturday afternoon. I like going in a weekday evening because it's quieter and things like that, and that's usually when like unlimited screenings are on, so there's going to be like more film fans in there with you who know how to behave. I've had my fair share of like bad cinema experiences, which is a whole other video. And it's just the subtlest thing, someone talking, someone rattling papers. I talked about it recently on the movie channel, the CM42 TV movie journal, which you can subscribe to below. I talked about Shang-Chi, the first time I went to see Shang-Chi, or the only time I saw it. There was like boys in front of me and they had like paper cups, cardboard cups with juice, just filled with ice. So every time they took a sip, it was like the ice was like rattling off the cup, and it was so distracting. Not to mention they were talking the whole time. So the simplest thing like that would bug me. If it's rattling papers or people talking, laughing at, emotional moments, things like that really bother me. I went to see King Richard a couple of nights ago, which I'll talk about on the movie journal as well. And there's a moment where like Will Smith is asking Venus Williams' character, "Are you going to do this? This is a big moment in your life." And before she could answer, some guy behind us was like, "No." It's just answered for her, like before, like out loud. Do you not realise you're in the cinema? Maybe they were just so engrossed in the film, but anyway, back to Monsters Inc. Me and the other children in the screen were running up and down the stairs and jumping and making a thud in the screen. I don't remember how busy it was. I don't know what time of the day it was. I must not have been busy to be allowed to do that. Obviously I wasn't allowed to do that, but no parents or adults were telling us to sit down. It was like, obviously it's an hour and 30 minutes to film, but that's a long time for like a wee guy to sit, you know what I mean? And I remember watching some of it and stuff like that. I remember watching the start and the middle and the end, but there was obviously times where either I wanted to get a juice or I wanted to go to the toilet, and I'm just like running up and down. And just if that happened now, I just know that would ruin my experience. I would actively want to say something. I would maybe say to the staff it's that bad, I now think back, I just feel horrendous. To anybody who was like me, I understand it was a kids film, and maybe parents were there just to get the kids out of the house. They don't care what happens, you know what I mean? They don't want to see it. But there's got to be people on that screen who wanted to see it. Disney fans, fans of John Goodman, film fans, people who like me who just wanted to go see. I'll still go see Disney films. I love seeing Disney films in the cinema. I saw Raya and the Last Dragon, I saw Frozen 2 in the cinema, I saw Onward. Just great Disney films, great experiences, and just, I can't imagine someone doing that now. So that's my first cinema experience. Monsters Inc., a great film, one of my favourite Disney films. But yeah, that's a real vivid early childhood memory, running up and down the stairs and the big steps of the Odeon cinema. But a cinema that I've not been back to in a long time, and maybe that's why. Maybe I'm scared. I'm a Cineworld guy now because of the card, but they've built a new View cinema in town in Glasgow City Centre, and it has every single cinema and every screen in it has like VIP recliner seats, better seats than the VIP Cineworld seats, which is crazy, you know what I mean? So now the VIP thing I think I'm paying for is kind of lost a little bit of its traction because the good seats and the better seats can be found in the view. I like the competition, it's good. Anyway, that is my first cinema experience. I can't wait to talk to my friends on the Good Bit podcast and hear their first cinema experiences. I'll post them as videos here on CM42 TV, and please leave a comment below. Let me know your first cinema experience when you were a child, or if it's a recent thing. I always say that like it must be a childhood thing, but maybe not. Maybe you just didn't go to the cinema when you were wee. I don't know. Let me know. And until next time, folks, take care of yourselves. I'll see you all then.